In Chapter 7, we're going to discuss some strategies for conducting research. Building effective research skills are important because why? These skills apply to your professional and personal life, and effective research skills are an absolute academic must. This is the result of poor research skills. So, what is research? Research is all about identifying and addressing an issue. You need to ask and answer a specific question or solve a specific problem. Research begins with what you already know about a particular issue, question, or problem. It does require planning and identifying various research resources. And it also requires writing a research paper and submitting it for an assessment. Research is not an expression of your opinion or your belief. It is not a report of mere facts and figures. It is definitely not copying someone else's research. Research is really not difficult, but it does take a lot of time. So, some of the basic skills that you're going to need to conduct research in academics. Obviously, you're going to have to do a lot of reading. You need to take notes. You need to ask questions. You have to identify a specific issue or problem. You're going to have to write a problem statement. You're going to have to write a thesis statement or a stance statement. And you're going to have to write an argument that uses evidence to support that argument. So for the research topic, make sure that you understand clearly what the professor is assigning. Do not make an assumption that you know what the professor wants, because you could spend a lot of your valuable time conducting research and writing a paper, and it's not what the professor's looking for, and it could cost you a lot of time and a bad grade. So an example of a research topic. Let's say that you're enrolled in Political Science 2301 and the professor assigns a specific research topic to write a research paper on the effects the Tea Party has on current politics within the United States. So one of the first things you need to do is read about things that are written about the Tea Party. You need to gain some background information. Look at multiple sources and differing points of view. You need to identify a specific issue, a question, or problem within the topic. So in the example of the Tea Party, an issue that could be identified, the Tea Party is currently not a formal political party. The Tea Party movement challenges the base principles, views, and values of both the Democratic and Republican parties, suggesting that the Tea Party could create a three-party system within the United States. So you've identified the issue. The next thing you need to do is write a thesis sentence or a stance sentence for this particular issue. Okay, it could be an objective versus a position. Both of these have arguments and they must be supported by evidence. So a sample thesis sentence from the issue statement that we just addressed could be, this paper critically contrasted the political principle, views, and values of the Tea Party movement with those of the Democratic and Republican parties to determine if the Tea Party could form a third party within the United States. A stance sentence from that problem statement could be, the Tea Party movement will form into a third party due to the major differences in political principal, views, and values of the Tea Party movement with those of the Democratic and Republican parties. So now at this point you need to start asking questions. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. And you need to utilize various resources to find the answers to these questions. We've already looked at the Wayland Baptist University Learning Resource Center. We've also taken a look at the UAA Consortium library, whether it's the physical library or the online libraries. You need to make sure that you go to scholarly websites on the internet. Not everything on the internet is scholarly, so maybe use the EBSCO databases and screen your information by checking peer-reviewed journals or peer-reviewed articles to ensure that you do have scholarly material. You could even conduct interviews with people that have been part of the process. Now we want to look at primary and secondary sources. The primary source represents the original work of an author, while secondary sources are interpretations of the original work. So right here we can see that we will gain more concrete factual information by utilizing primary sources because it is the original work of the author. An example of this would be Abraham Maslow when he developed his needs hierarchy theory of motivation. Maslow never presented the material in a pyramid format. However, in his secondary sources, people who interpreted Maslow's theory represented it in a pyramid format. So, whenever possible, make sure you use as many primary sources as possible. You can use the internet, but be cautious because not everything that is available on the internet is trustworthy or scholarly. Google, definitely a powerful search engine, but the things that you find on Google are not necessarily scholarly. If you use Google Scholar, it will reflect scholarly sources of information. When you use scholarly sources, they are reliable. They do reflect specific research within a specific discipline. They don't contain opinions, they contain factual data. So some of the resources that you can use for your research are article databases. You can use discipline-specific dictionaries, encyclopedias. Professional and scholarly journals are a good source of information. Dissertations are another good source of information. Biographical indexes, and you could always contact a research librarian to point you in the right direction to scholarly resources. So as you're scanning the library or scanning online for resources, it is important to have a research journal and to take accurate notes. And as you can see on the slide, always capture the source information. So as you find a journal or an article that is relevant to your particular paper, make sure you capture the author's name or names, title of the book or the title of the article, the date of publication. If it's a book, make sure you get the edition number. Make sure you get the publisher and the city of publisher and the relevant page numbers that the article is found. Because when you cite these sources in your paper, you're going to have to list them on your reference page, and the requirement on the reference page for citing sources, you're going to have to list the author, the title, the date of publication, publisher and city, and if it's a direct quote, you're going to have to list the specific page numbers. So go ahead while you're actually conducting your research and gather this information at that point. It will save you a lot of time later. Okay, we're going to talk about direct quotes versus paraphrasing. In an 8 to 10 page research paper, should not contain more than 2 direct quotes. That's a general rule. A direct quote is often used to strengthen a particular position or particular argument that you've made. You need to also understand what writing style is required for a research paper. Paraphrasing. We should do a lot of this in our research papers. It's the process of taking information from a reliable source and restating the information in your own words. If you paraphrase information from someone else or another source, make sure you properly cite that source. Do not use information from other sources without citing, because that is considered plagiarism. As far as writing styles, if you're a religion major, you should be using Turabian. If you're in the School of Business or Social Sciences, you should use APA. Currently, we're using the APA Manual 6th edition. Plagiarism, plain and simple, is cheating. It's when you take the words of another author and present them as your own without citing the sources. In the academic catalog, under the section titled Academic Honesty, you will find the consequences for cheating. And the consequences could be receiving a 0 or being expelled.